thank you for coming on this very rainy and very dour day. Congrats on making it here, and congrats on joining us for GDG Jam Round 2. I will be your host, Adi, as always, and let's get into it. First of all, we're going to do a very quick trailer of what GDG is. So, has anyone here done GDG Jam before? Put your hand up. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me just say like 25% of the room. So the other 75% is very new to this. So GDG Jam is like any other game jam. You know, we try to make a game within a very small amount of time and present it by the end of it. So how it's different to like regular game dev is that you hear a theme, you hear a central theme on which you can base your game on. You form teams with people around you. And you have a time limit of like 1.5 months, I think. You find resources, you try to learn how to make a game, you try to improve your skills if you've made games before, and by the end of it, you get to showcase it and have awards and stuff. It's a really cool opportunity, and I've had a lot of fun hosting it. Every semester, there's always more and more games, and I'm always blown away by the quality that everything just has. So, GDG Jam is not a competitive event. We're all about like learning and supporting each other and making our games. But I mean, we do have awards to reward you for making your games in specific categories. But in general, you know, we're just trying to enjoy making games, you know. It's a very hard thing to make a game, and you should all be proud of the fact that you will make a game by the end of this. Yes? Who has made a game before? Just want to know. I think like the vast majority of you. Yeah, so we got like a sea of people who haven't done it. That's cool. We encourage people to be like new to game dev and explore it. Like I myself, I was an artist, and I'd never made a game, and then in 2022 I joined like my first GDG Jam, and it was super fun, and ever since I've had a lot of fun doing this. So, what makes a game? So the first stage of making a game is always the idea phase, you know, thinking of what kind of themes and ideas and like central like mechanics you want to have for your game. We give you a theme, and then you try to base an idea based on that, right? Next, you will consider your teams and potential tasks and plans. You will consider the engines and tools that you'll be using, and you will also consider, most importantly, the design and mechanics of the game. You know, like what are the core mechanics, what are the core features that you want, how does the player interact with your game, do you want to have anything extra and cool, like maybe like, what was it, like, it was something you could like attach to like your arm and you could jump with it, and it like transformed as like bouncing in the screen. You know, just like if you want to have haptic gear or if you want to implement something really cool, this is the phase for it. Next up, you obviously have creating the actual game itself. So the most important thing is always going to be coding. I know the majority of you are coders, but for people like me who are just artists, so etc., we still have a pretty important role. You know, like coding is 50% of the game, and art can often be like the 40% that remains. You know, you get to see the game. But of course, you also have to consider writing and music and SFX. And finally, you have assembly, testing, and building. So that's where you get to actually put together your game, assemble it, release it, you know, test it, make sure it actually works and doesn't have like 2 million bugs, and then you release it. And voila, you've made a game. Pretty simple, right? So, when you make a game, it can be good to like have a sort of timeline for making a game. We try to run from week 3 to week 8. So within that period, you'll be actually like learning how to make a game, right? You'll be learning how to use your engine, coding, making art, other things. And then you actually start to like assemble a few of your core things, you know? Whether it's like assets, tile maps, characters, etc., and also like the core mechanics of your game. And then, during the break, you might be focusing on that, or you might start to consider assembly. So assembly is like what I said, thinking of how to produce the main level, the UI, the dialogue, etc., etc. And while all this is happening, just, continuing to learn. Finally, you have to do the polish and detail. So, like making sure your game looks very pretty, well put together, and also bug fixing. So if you want, you can have your friends play your game, make sure the game doesn't crash as soon as you move your character by like 1 pixel and then everything explodes, Make sure that the game actually works. And by the end, you have a game. Now, that was for novices, right? For people who have like made games before, who are more seasoned with it, your timeline might look more like this, Since you already have learned most of the things in making a game, your focus might be to just like implement mechanics and the design from the get-go. So compared to like beginners who will spend a lot of time learning, experts often just get into it, right? You might be producing even more complicated assets like enemy AI, having placeholders, more important UI, having like a good task priority, all that kind of shit, right? And then in the middle of the jam, you'll try to produce a minimum viable product or a demo. And after that, if that functions, you try to add more features, more details, try to keep on bug fixing and think about the balance and all the playtesting and just all the malarkey. And then that's how you actually get to make a game, right? So, if you're a beginner, go easy with the game. But if you're a bit more seasoned, your timeline may look more like this. So, as a club, we all try to encourage you guys to make teams. Games made by yourself can be very hard. I've never made a game by myself, but I know for the people who have, you actually don't get too much done because it is just one person making it, and it often relies on you having a lot of skills to cover all those bases. But if you form teams, we recommend like teams of 3 to 5, then you can have a mixture of skill sets. I'm often the artist of the team, but we also have coders, and we'll often like have like maybe designers or another coder or another musician, whatever like skill set could be there. It's good to have a variety, and it's good to like, try to get everyone involved. Yeah. So especially if you're like a new person to making games, form a team. Okay, if you're going to try and make a game by yourself, it's very hard, and you won't know what you're doing half the time. You'll be spending so much time learning that you don't actually make a game by the end, so it's better if you just form a team. But of course, we have people who do like to go solo, so you have all the freedom to do whatever you want, right? We can't force you to do anything. Finally, we have a few things to consider about scope. So scope is a very important thing when it comes to actually producing the game. Often a lot of people just have too big a scope, they try to like think of too many things, they try to make too many features, and it ends up just killing them because they don't actually make a game by the end. But still, it's good to like consider these tenets. So first of all, it's good to have, good scope, a clear vision of like what kind of game you want to make, and make sure that it's achievable. This is low-key like intuitive, like we'll be going around, we'll be like giving you guys like an idea of like where to like sort of balance your game and like what features you should and shouldn't implement at your skill level. But sometimes you kind of just learn from failure. So, go crazy with the ideas, but make sure it's at least a bit achievable. We want you to experiment, but we also want to make sure that you still make a game by the end of it. It's also good to be conscientious of feature creep. That's what happens like when you think of way too many ideas, when you try to implement too many things. I remember there was a game like last semester or the semester before where they tried to make basically Terraria in like a month and a half, and I was like, are you guys sure about that? And they were like, we have a team of 10. I was like, do you? So, try to be like a bit more reasonable about what you can make. Like making Mario, I feel like that's kind of reasonable, right? There's still a lot of mechanics in making Mario, but even then, just making a very simple like level, like a single level, or just something very simple. At least have that, and then if you have time, then you can build on that, And also make sure to consider like, you're all going to be busy, right? I'm guessing the majority of you are students, yes? Yeah. So that means that you all are going to be busy with assignments and, projects and all that stuff. Most of our execs are Part 4 students. Most of us are engineering or comp sci, so that means we're all dealing with like capstone, we're dealing with our Part 4 project, we're dealing with other group assignments. So that means we don't have much time to actually work on a game. So we give you a lot of time just so that you can actually make something of a game. And so you don't feel like you're stressed and you have to like create this massive MMORPG or whatever, right? We just try to give you a lot of time just so you actually have some breathing time so you can balance your other obligations. and to ensure that you guys don't actually burn out by the end of it. We've had a few teams who spend so much time on the game. They spent like 12 hours a day working on assets for 7 days straight, sometimes 16 hours, and that can kill you off. So be respectful to yourself and make sure you don't burn yourself out. So, you know, having a good scope and having a good like balance of how you're making the game is very important to consider. And of course, you have to consider the kind of resources that you'll be using. So there's a lot of resources for making like games, right? You have your art resources, you have the engine that you'll be using. There's like Unreal, I love Godot, but a lot of people like using Unity. Some people even like using Game Maker, or some people might just be making in Pygame or some shit, you know, like fucking Scratch. You know, like go with whatever you want, but make sure your team is on board with it. Then you also have to consider like the kind of art software that you'll be using. I'm a pixel artist, so I use Sprite or LibreSprite, but some people love to use Krita, Photoshop, or if they're going 3D, then they might be using Blender, Maya, all that kind of stuff. You also have to consider like the IDE that you'll be using for your coding, so you know, Notepad++, I guess, is an option, but more realistically, people will be using Rider or VS Code, you know, that kind of stuff. And of course, think about like the place that you're going to be documenting all your stuff. So make sure you have like a Google Drive or Notion or all that kind of shit to like share all your ideas and centralize everything. Yeah, you know, just make sure that you all have a common ground on what kind of tools you'll be using and where you can give tools to each other. The majority of you, I hope, are going to be using GitHub, but G Drive works as well, you know. And of course, you also have to consider the kind of assets that you're going to be using. You know, like where are you going to get your scripts? Where are you going to get the art? Where are you going to get the music? Where are you going to get the sound effects? Where are you going to get the screaming of tortured souls to put into your game, you know? So you have a lot of options for doing that. Of course, I would heavily encourage all of you to try making your own assets. But if you don't have the skills for that, you know, if you don't have an artist on your team, or if you don't have a musician, which musicians are like the tiniest population in our club, then of course try to use like open source or, you know, free like archives of like assets to find it on. I think it's Free Music Archive is a really good place to get music, but there's also Free Sound for sound. You can also consider like places like itch.io, the Unity Asset Store, the Godot Asset Library, Open Game Art, etc., etc. You know, just Google stuff, try to find stuff that works for your game and put it in there. We're not expecting like something that you'll be seeing on the Steam store page, but you know, try your best to make something, and if you can't, then get it from these sources. And make sure that it has like proper copyright. We've had some people in the past use stuff from like Minecraft, and that meant that we couldn't really show it off at like a big event like Indie Game Showcase or Armageddon. So if you want to show off your games in a big event like that, then make sure it has copyright attribution or just good free shit that isn't Minecraft, you know? So yeah, be conscientious of all of that. And of course, I am trying to implement the asset bank. So on our Discord, which is, I hope everyone's on it, we have a little channel called the Asset Bank where you can like dump all the assets that you've made in the past and also just use it for your own projects. So I've released a lot of my tile sets that I've used in my old projects, but I know some of our other like members have posted their own work. Frank over here, who is a legendary artist, has posted some of it here, and you can see a lot of people liked it. And that means a lot of people are allowed to use it. Right, Frank? Yes. Yes. So feel free to like, you know, share your own stuff here. Feel free to steal stuff from here. We want to make this like a common place for all of us to just get shit from and put shit in, you know? We all encourage like sharing and caring, so that's a great place for that. If we get a lot of traction in this, maybe I'll like give you guys a little award for just being the best. Yeah. Please post here, it'll be very nice. And please make sure to steal stuff from here if you're missing anything.
Before we progress any further, we do have some videos that we'd like you to watch. One on making your first game jam, one on some practical rules for a game jam, and the other one on actually having a game present after you're finished and not just a half-baked product, essentially. Well, not a half-baked product, but basically something that you can actually play. So let's watch those two.
We're going to stick to giving you the best practices for how to actually approach the project itself. So, for your first game, tip number 1, don't plan a project that you think will take you more than a month. Remember, you're going to be getting better with every game you build, and you'll actually often be better off just tossing your first project aside and starting from scratch after you've gotten it out there and learned all you can from it. Tip number 2, it's going to take you more than a month, but don't sweat it. You won't have much frame of reference when you're planning that first game you're going to create, and even the most hardened professionals have learned over time to just take their best scheduling estimate and then add 50% to it. Because surprises always come up in game development, and each game presents its own unique challenges. So if you overshoot your 1-month deadline, don't panic, it happens. But if you're coming up on 3 months, well, you probably scoped too large. Take what you've learned and start something smaller next time. Tip number 3. Don't worry too much about the design of your first game. It kills James to say this, but don't spend weeks designing systems or mechanics that you don't even know if you can implement yet. Just get to building something as quickly as you can. The experience is way more valuable than the end results this time around. Tip number 4, set milestones. This one sounds obvious, but it can be so easy to ignore on a small project. If you estimate your project should take you about a month, set yourself a milestone goal for every week. Tip number 5, take those big milestone tasks and break them down even further. As you plan, any tasks that you've listed as taking more than a week is probably best broken down into smaller tasks. This is true for pretty much any game you'll ever build. Build graphics engine or complete character art are way too big to be tasks. Implement hardware instancing or rig main character. Those are at least closer. Even those can probably be broken down further. Having a granular task list will help you plan better, keep you on track, and make you feel like you're really accomplishing things as you tick them off the list. Tip number 6, send yourself producer emails. At the beginning of each week, send yourself an email saying what you did last week and what you plan to do this week. Then compare that with last week's email. This is a quick and dirty way of making sure that things don't fall off the production schedule, and it will help you organize your time each week. Tip number 7, review your game at least once a week. Even if life gets hectic, if your job or school gets in the way of you making a lot of progress on your game, make yourself at least look at your game just for a half hour once a week. It's really, really easy to let 2 weeks slip by without touching your game, and then when you finally get back to it, finding yourself totally lost and not remembering what you were doing or where you were at. This is the point at which a lot of people quit. Don't let that happen to you. Tip number 8, don't worry about production values. A lot of people get derailed by trying to make their first game look or sound good. Don't worry about that. If your game plays amazing, you'll have plenty of time to work on the polish later. But unless you're adding one of those polish touches just to learn how to do it, none of it matters for your first game. Keep in mind, there are a lot of great games out there that are made of nothing but moving squares. Tip number 9, don't spend more than 1 hour trying to do anything yourself. If you find yourself stuck on a problem, take a stab at it because it'll help you learn, but you shouldn't be spending more than an hour on any individual problem in your game. Given that it's your first game, everything you're trying to do probably has an excellent tutorial out there for it. Use those resources. One of the most common quitting points for first-time developers is spending a week making no progress on a problem that the world at large could have helped them solve in minutes. I know that many of us, myself included, want to solve everything ourselves, but take advice from someone who's learned this the hard way. Don't try to do that. And finally, tip number 10, make people play your game. I know that we mentioned this last time, but this is incredibly important. You will learn an unbelievable amount just from seeing how people play what you've created. It's easy to be embarrassed or shy about these things, and it's easy to look at other games out there and say, wow, my game does not measure up to that. I'll show people my game once I have something that does. But trust me, the path to making great games is marked by all the realizations you'll have from people actually playing your earlier work. Don't deny yourself that incredible resource. Hopefully these guidelines should serve to help you get your first game out in no time. Well, 3 months at most. If you find yourself struggling, cut stuff. Find the smallest possible game you can make. Make that. Once that's done, find 1 or 2 new things that you'd like to experiment with, and base your next game around those ideas. If you keep things small and you can keep blazing your way through these projects, you'll find that by the time a year's out, you'll really be able to make games that let you experiment with a huge range of design ideas and game types. And if you're wondering just how to keep your game small, join us on the next episode for a dive into prototyping and the idea of minimum viable product. See you then. During the last 2 episodes, we've stressed how important it is to make your first game something small. But this is so important that this time we're going to dedicate the entire episode to it. This will serve you in good stead not only when you're creating your first game, but also when prototyping for anything else you do. In development, there's a term called minimum viable product, which refers to the smallest thing you can possibly make that'll still give you useful data once released. That should be your goal. Even when James is called in to work on a multi-million-dollar project that has a development time of 3 years, one of the first things he'll tell them is that if they don't have a prototype up in the first 3 weeks, they're doing it wrong. When you can actually play your game, you'll discover all sorts of things that you didn't account for when you were just designing the game in your head. You'll find edge cases where your mechanics are broken, or places where your game just falls apart. You'll find what's really engaging rather than just trying to build something that you hope is engaging, and you'll discover what will add the most to the experience you're creating. Okay, so you've heard me say cut and cut and cut, and that when you think you're done cutting, you're probably not done cutting, but you do have to stop cutting sometime. So how do we determine when we're down to that minimum viable product? Well, this one is a bit tough, and you're gonna get better at it with experience, but the basic idea is to find the absolute minimum set of features that won't affect core development. If you could cut a feature and still technically ship your game, it's probably not part of your minimum viable product. But because this is as much an art as it is a science, let's run through some examples so we're all on the same footing. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. What do we need in order to test if the fundamental gameplay of Super Mario Bros. Is engaging? What's the minimum that we can build and test before deciding if what we have is something worth expanding upon with additional features? Well, do we need Koopas? No. Fire flowers? Nope. Bowser? Nope. Pipes that you can climb down? No. Pipes at all? No. Water levels, mushrooms, hidden blocks, extra lives? No. So what do we need? Well, for Mario, the minimum viable product is probably one level where you can move, jump, and fall into pits. That's it. If just that much is engaging, you'll be able to add all those other features later and make it even better. But if running along and jumping over pits doesn't feel good, Super Mario Bros. Simply doesn't work, no matter how many extra features you throw in. So you've got to make sure that that core is working first. Although, in this particular case, I'd probably throw in 2 other features that aren't strictly necessary, but they will make a big difference. First, a trigger which resets the level if the player falls into the pit, just so testing is easier, and to make sure that this aspect isn't just unpalatable to players. And second, the ability to change from walking to running, since the Mario jump mechanic is so dependent on the run button. But that's it. 1 level, 3 features, and you've got a game. Don't believe something this simple could be engaging? Well, set the character to auto-run and you've basically built Cannibalt. When building your first game, or prototyping a larger one, you'll find that you can strip out all of the content, all of the things that aren't rules that control the play itself, but rather elements that are created out of those rules. So enemy types, levels, different weapons, all of that can usually get cut. You might want to include one thing from each category just to test the larger rules, but no more than that, because it's really easy to get mired down in making all of that content. And the truth is, games with lots of content but without a solid foundation are rarely good. Perhaps worse, as a creator, when your game's packed with content, it's generally harder to figure out why the foundation's not working. If you test your prototype with a lot of content thrown in, it'll be harder for players to put their fingers on exactly what it is that needs improvement, as all of that content just clutters what's wrong, and they'll be more likely to tell you about bad pieces of content rather than the underlying reasons why that content didn't create a positive experience. It just adds complexity in a situation where you really need to be honing your game's core foundation. Okay, so let's try another one. Old school JRPGs. Now this one can fool people because most designers tend to think of these games in terms of content rather than gameplay. It's easy to get caught up in the story you want to tell, or the massive lists of items and enemies. But if the player has to slog through 80 hours of weak gameplay in order to access that story you've got in mind, you've done your player a disservice. In fact, that's some of what's contributed to the decline in the popularity of traditional JRPGs this decade. So take a game like Final Fantasy IV. Here, I would cut everything but the menu-based combat system. I would even cut out all the graphics. Monsters can just be words on the screen. That's really all you need to test the system. Now, many of you might object, saying, but that doesn't work. I can't make that engaging without the content. This is actually great, though. It immediately tells us that we should probably find a more robust system. Alright, let's try one more. This time, let's look at Ikaruga. Here, we could probably cut down to the color switching mechanic, an enemy which switches color randomly and shoots random bullet patterns, or maybe randomly chooses from a small list of pre-built bullet patterns, as that wouldn't be too hard to construct. Also, you'll need the ability for the player to move and to shoot, a counter which ticks upward as you shoot the enemy, and a death mechanic that simply resets the game when the player gets hit. This will get you all the player behavior you need to find out if your game's engaging. Your players will try to dodge and shoot the enemy while attempting to take advantage of the color swapping system as much as possible. That's all you need. Hopefully that helps you frame your thinking about just how small your first project should be.
And now, it's time. All right, get ready to drum. Yes. All right. Theme reveal. 3, 2, 1. Reverse. But yes, you can see the theme is reverse. So, when it comes to themes, they are just a basis for you to build your games on. You can take the word reverse in any way you want. You can make it an action, you can make it a noun, you can make it a location, you can make it whatever you want it to be. Just make sure your game follows the theme reverse. Yes? Yes. Okay. Next up, we also have some additional challenge modifiers. So these are optional challenges to give your game like a little bit of an extra twist. Last semester was the first time we ever tried that, and it seemed to be pretty successful, so we're going to continue doing that. These give you like a variety of different ways to modify your game or include more stuff. These are challenging, and these can be limiting, so make sure you don't do all of them, but feel free to do any of them. They are not mandatory, so you don't have to do any of them, but a challenge is a challenge. Are you guys ready for it? Modifier reveals. Drum roll, please. The first two. General modifier. Incorporate some accessibility settings. And then design modifier. Input is restricted to a single button at any time. Yeah. So like I said, you can do anything with these challenges. You can do anything with a theme. And these modifiers or these challenges are very optional. Oh, you got a question?
Does the input modifier mean you can't use like a D-pad or something, like directional buttons?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess a mouse counts as a single button, I guess. So if you have like a cursor or something that moves, then I guess that could be something. Interpret it however you want, right? I'm not going to be like really fussy over like how you make it. Just if it generally reaches the vibe, then cool, you satisfied the modifier. All right, the second set of modifiers will be everyone. Okay, the second set is writing modifier. Explore a niche narrative genre. Niche.
What the heck's a niche, bro?
I don't know. What does it mean?
Because I could pull something that's pretty common in other medias. Romance is not done in gaming, but it's very common in books. So how's that work?
I mean, like I said, interpret it however you want. I don't know. Just be creative with it. Just be creative with it. And of course, the last modifier is a music modifier. Employ the use of a strange musical instrument. So that could be something as silly as like a theremin, a fucking kazoo, like automatones. Like the sillier, the stupider, the better, So yeah, these are our 4 modifiers, and this is our theme. So next up, I want you guys all to brainstorm a game idea. This is not a time to make teams. This is a time to think of an idea. You can think of multiple ideas, just talk with your neighbor and stuff. At the end of this breakout, raise your hand if you have an idea. And then we will take the people who suggest an idea to come outside so we can discuss it and its scope. And then you get back in, you briefly present your ideas. And then based on those ideas, everyone goes around and forms a team. These are not like ideas that are set in concrete, it's very flexible. This is just a brainstorming session. So until step 5, we are not forming a team, just making ideas. All right, everyone, please pay attention. We're now going to present your ideas. If you have ideas, please come up and write it over here. You will also tell it to everyone, just tell it into the mic, and then you type it out, and then that's pretty sick. What's your name, and tell us your idea.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff, and my team's game idea is called The Land Down Under, and it is based on Australian, and it's a bullet hell kind of game. So pretty much, all the sprites will just be completely flipped upside down, and your player will be like throwing a boomerang, which reverses back to you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a work in progress.
Yes. So these ideas can be very rough, they can be very silly, they can be very goofy, and depending on the team you end up having, you will have to adapt your ideas, yes? But for now, just write it down.
Oh, yeah.
Just write down your name and giving all these ideas. We're gonna post it on Discord for like people who couldn't make it, because I know like a bunch of people couldn't make it because it's rainy and also just they were sick or whatever. You know, life happens. So if anyone wants to join your team from Discord, they will get it from here.
I'm John, and we're gonna make a game where you have to mess up your room. So it's like reverse cleaning. So at the start, you're given a messed up room, and then it's gonna be clean. And then you have to replicate the first messed up room by memorizing the things. Does it make sense? Yeah, and that's the basic idea, and we may elaborate on it, but I don't know yet. Yeah.
Yeah, just write on your idea and then just let the next person talk.
So, well, you know me. I'm the guy that tends to write the story at the end, frankly speaking, because programming can be a complete nightmare when it comes to ideas. But some of the concepts I had was sort of like the bones of it would essentially be, I'd lean either towards like survival horror or like visual novel styles with like a time loop style story in it. What else is there? There's also the second view driving as well, so that would be a pretty interesting concept where you're essentially the driver of the first car, but your perspective is from the rear view mirror essentially. So imagine if you're driving, like, imagine the setting essentially as a car, the rear view mirror. You're the car in the rear view mirror essentially. So instead of it being like a first person driving, third person driving, it's more like a second person driving. What else was there? Yeah, I'm kind of open, so don't take this the wrong way, but I'm kind of a hobo. I have no group, so yeah. So I'll take any offers. It's just like usual.
Hello, my name's Robert. Our game is basically just a concept at this point, where you'll have a gadget that will let you traverse between two timelines. Think that Titanfall level where you can like switch between the past and the present. Not sure where we will go with it. That's honestly about it.
Yeah.
All right, tower defense game, but you don't play as the towers. Think like BTD 6, but you don't, or any of the other ones. But you play as the balloons, or like that one Plants vs Zombies minigame. I'm not even using this idea, so anyone can just like use it if you don't have an idea. So, see what I mean? I have plenty of other ideas if anyone wants them as well.
Okay, so it's a visual novel where you're trapped in a strange, creepy basement, and you're talking to this woman who's like trying to help you, right? Well, you think she's trying to help you, but actually later on it turns out, well, the tables are turned, and she's the one that trapped you in her basement. That's the reversal. And she's actually conducting a ritual using you as a human sacrifice for the ritual. And I don't know if I should say anymore. Let's just say.
Hi everyone, my name is Cypher, and our team is going to make games about losing musicians making his own masterpiece after his death. The player is a loser in music when he was alive, and he did nothing. He ignored his families, but after his death, he finds that he become a ghost, and he can go back to his past and collecting sound in that time point, and of course he can make up for some his regrets in that time point. For example, the player is a working man, and he was too busy that when his mom's passing away, he is not with her, and the player can act as a ghost at that times and accompany her when she was passing away. And finally, when the players go through this time point, the player can make a sound of his own. If you still miss the sounds when you're traveling through this time point, you will create a sound that are very discouraging. However, if you go through this sound and make up for all the regrets, you will create an energetic sound, and it will be published on the internet, and it will spread and affect more people in the real world. However, we still need more musicians here. Anyone can join us? Thank you very much.
I'm Daniel, and it would be a musical game and a cooking game, but 2 players. One person would have a normal controller. The other person would have a drum kit, an electronic drum kit that will be mapped as a controller. And the idea is one person controls the movement, and the other person controls everything else, the cooking. In terms of the reverse, at some point, it would switch. So the drum kit would be controlling the movement, and the other person would be controlling everything else. And back and forth. I guess that's the reversal part. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Anton. For our game, we'll be doing a gravity platformer, or a puzzle platformer. So we'll be incorporating stuff like reversing gravity and time travel, probably. So for our theme of reverse. In terms of hiring people, we do probably need some artists. So that would be great. And that's our base concept for now. Cool.
Hi, my name is Ben. So our game is a roguelike game where you play as a band of goblins. So this would be co-op between a maximum of 4 people, like on your local machine. And you got to go around and be greedy goblins and kill like heroes, steal their stuff, and just generally be a nuisance. So it's a roguelike, so each play session will be like maybe 20 minutes until you all die, all the goblins die. So looking for anyone interested in like gameplay design or light coding, like I'm a coder myself, so I've got most of the code planned out. Artists are also welcome, but generally anyone who's interested in making a co-op roguelike game. Thanks.
So a way bigger round of applause for everyone who came up and gave an idea, right? Come on. And while they finish typing up, I'm going to just tell you all, if you want to present some more ideas, now's your time. If you still are too shy or just haven't thought of an idea yet, then you can always post it on our Discord. I'll be giving a few more announcements in like 5 minutes, but as they finish typing up, please feel free to form teams. So yes, for the next 5 minutes, go form teams if you still don't have anyone, you know? Yeah, go for it. You're welcome. Yay. Thank you. All right, I got like a few more like things to just like mention before we finish off the night. All right, so it's gonna be like 5 more slides, so it'll be pretty quick. All right, first of all, in these early stages, make sure you set up communication. A lot of teams fail because you guys don't fucking communicate with each other. It's a really bad thing. And please communicate. So set up a Discord, set up a group chat, a messenger group. Usually just Discord is perfect. Make sure you set up like a repository, a G drive, so you can share all your work. Set up communication. It is key. And of course, begin planning. So continue brainstorming your ideas, refining it, completely changing it. You can even decide to just like hire more people, as you've been doing right now, or merge your teams. Sometimes your teams are just too small to really do an idea, so you end up just becoming one bigger hive mind. We still recommend you guys to stick to like 3 to 5 people in a team, because if it gets any bigger, it becomes like a thing of project management, which is really not fun. You have to have like someone who's like the leader and always saying like, hey, do this, do that. It just becomes really boring. It's not fun. So stick to like 3 to 5 people, but if your team's too tiny or you can't really produce it, then merge with someone else. And yeah, if you want to post your teams or advertise it, make sure to post in project teams. Next up, I will force you guys to work smart. So make sure you guys are doing stuff that you can do, right? Like make sure to like use assets from online if you can't make it. If you're missing music, find it online. If you're missing art, find it online. Play to your team's strengths. If you have a lot of coders, make a really mechanical game. If you have a lot of artists, make a visual novel like those guys over there, So stick to your strengths. I mean, if you want to experiment and do different things, go for it, but stick to your strengths. Manage it well, so make sure you keep it simple. We're not making an industry like AAA kind of game. We're making something shitty that will go on like itch.io. keep it simple. We're not like, this isn't like a massive like capstone project, okay? This is just something super simple. We're meant to have fun with it, so stick to simple, okay? I will really reinforce, like, please stick to simple. And make sure that you prioritize your core features. So don't focus on making like shaders and stuff at the start. Focus on like making them very basic mechanics and like maybe some of the simplest art. And then you can keep on building more and more complex things. And of course, be sorry to yourself, like, you know, what's the word? Be forgiving to yourself. If you make a lot of mistakes, which you will, it's fine. If your game ends up looking really shit, it's fine. Like, you're gonna fail, it's gonna happen, and you kind of just have to accept it because a lot of learning happens from failure. You know, learn from your mistakes and learn how to manage it next time. So we try to do this every semester, so every semester is another opportunity to make a game. So embrace that mentality, you know? Be fine with failure, be happy with it, engage in it. And of course, we have two places where you can ask for help. Everyone say hi to Ben.
Hi, Ben.
So Ben is over there. He will be on Discord and also in person. So if you ever want to say hi to him, like get some help from him, do so. He will potentially check up on the teams, yes?
Yeah, so I may do weekly checkups, and if you don't want to be like checked up on every week, just tell me, but like I'll message everyone, all the team leaders, and like just to see how you're progressing.
Yeah. So yeah, you can ask him. What's up?
My Discord is Ninja King 1212, but on the GDG it's Ben.
Yeah, all of our execs have the first name, like article names. So yeah, you can ask him for help. You can ask me for help. Just don't be scared to reach out to us. We will provide it. We'll give you advice, etc., etc. You can also just ask in generally in Discord, like go in general, go in like dev help. We have channels dedicated to just like asking about different topics. Go there, ask about it. You know, everyone's like very helpful with each other. Yeah, yeah. Don't be shy. And of course, we have a few follow-up events. So first of all, Showcase Nights, that's like our sort of biggest event where you actually show off all your work, including the games that you made from this jam. So you can show off all of your old and new works, including non-jam games. You can invite a lot of friends to come over and play these games. And we also have like pizza and stuff, so you know, you get fed. And you also get to vote your games for different award categories at our BAGM. So following that up. We have a BAGM awards night. So, you know, we have like a bunch of little awards for everyone to get based on different like categories, you know, art, music, writing, the theme, etc., etc. So that's a great place to get awards for that. It's also just a nice time to just celebrate the end of the semester and elect our next leaders and also have dinner with us because we have like a massive group dinner of like 10 to 20 of us that goes somewhere. And also, if you want to show off your game at like a big event like Armageddon Spring, you do that. So, you know, if you sign up for that, we will potentially have a space there. So we might like rotate between like a few games, and it's a great place to like show off your games to the public, to a lot of people. There's like 1,000 people that like swing by the stall, so it's a lot of people. But it's a really good chance to like get it play tested and even like work on it as like a bigger game if you so choose to do so in the future. Anyways, closing words. You know the theme, you know the modifiers, you know to scope small, you know to ensure playability. You know, if you can't run in our club room, we can't do shit, right? So make sure it's like an EXE or like it's playable on the web so we can show it off. We're gonna be playing it on these shitty computers, so make sure it runs on that. If it's an Unreal game, bring your PC. Just saying this right now. These computers will explode if you try to run like an Unreal game. Keep an eye on Discord. We're always going to have announcements. Make sure to like post your team, and we will be posting the list of teams that we did before on Discord. If you want to hire more people there, go for it. If you still haven't been hired, go there. It's a great place. And make sure you have good copyright. So, you know, Minecraft, don't copy from Minecraft. Don't copy from like random IPs and stuff. If you do, then don't show it off at like Armageddon. Okay? We're cool with that? Yeah. All right. And make sure you have fun, and don't forget to sign up. So yeah, these are our team signups. Once you've formed your teams, you can scan this QR code and you can sign up your team to register. These are like not set in stone, but it is just so like we can get contact details from you, and so that Ben can like tell you guys like, hey, how you guys doing, and check up on you guys. And of course, next week, me and my friend Jerry, we're going to be doing a level design workshop. It's going to be like a mixture of like level design, world building, like for games, VR, and real life, just seeing like how you can design worlds for that. It's our first time doing anything design related, but it is going to be fun, so please come along to that. That's going to be next Monday, and yeah, it'll be good. So yeah, make sure to sign up to that, and thank you everyone for listening.
Woo!